In the scorching heart of West Africa, where the red earth of the Sahel meets the defiant rhythm of the people, a boy was born who would become the voice of a continent, a soldier, a dreamer, a revolutionary. His name was Thomas Sankara. He was born on December 21st, 1949, in the small town of Yako in Upper Volta, a land still shackled by French colonialism. His parents were modest. His father, a former soldier in the French army, his mother, a devoted woman rooted in tradition. But from the start, Thomas was different. While other children dreamed of escaping poverty, Thomas dreamed of transforming it. He looked at injustice not with fear, but with fury. From a young age, Sankara was drawn to ideas, to books, to music, to history. He was a brilliant student, but more than that, he was a boy who could see beyond the limits imposed upon him. Colonialism had left scars on his land: poverty, illiteracy, foreign control. And Sankara vowed, even as a child, that he would not live under someone else's boot. At 17, he joined the military, not for power, but for purpose. He saw the army not as a tool of oppression, but as a place where he could one day spark revolution. As he rose through the ranks, he traveled to Madagascar, where he witnessed a powerful student uprising that shook a government. It changed him forever. He read Marx, he read Fanon, he studied Che Guevara, and from their words, he carved out his own mission. Africa would not be free until Africans freed themselves, not just from foreign rule, but from mental slavery, from corruption, from fear. Thomas Sankara returned to Upper Volta a changed man, not just a soldier, a revolutionary. And soon, the people began to notice. He was charismatic, he refused luxury, he spoke the language of the poor, not in theory, but in truth. He walked with peasants, he sang with workers, he called out injustice without fear. In 1981, he became Minister of Information under President Jean-Baptiste Ouédraogo. But Sankara refused to be silenced. He spoke too freely. He exposed corruption. He criticized foreign aid that humiliated the people. And so, they dismissed him. But you cannot dismiss an idea. You cannot kill a voice that echoes from the soul of a nation. In 1983, after months of rising tension, a coup was launched, and Thomas Sankara, at just 33 years old, became the president of Upper Volta. The world did not yet know what had begun, but Africa would never forget. When Thomas Sankara became president in August 1983, he didn't just take office, he ignited a revolution. He didn't sit on golden chairs. He didn't speak from ivory towers. He rode to work on a bicycle. He played guitar for the people, and he wore the same military fatigues as the soldiers who guarded him. He was the people's president. One of his first acts was symbolic, yet powerful. He renamed the country. Upper Volta, a name given by colonial rulers, was buried. In its place, he raised a new identity: Burkina Faso, the land of upright people. And upright they became. Sankara's revolution was not just political, it was cultural, moral, human. He declared war on poverty, ignorance, and dependency. He launched mass vaccination campaigns. In just a few weeks, over 2.5 million children were immunized against measles, meningitis, and yellow fever, a historic feat for Africa. He mobilized people to build schools and hospitals with their own hands. He told farmers they were the backbone of the nation and gave them tools, support, and dignity. Women, long silenced, finally heard a voice defending them. Sankara said, "The revolution cannot triumph without the emancipation of women." He banned forced marriages. He appointed women to key government positions. He encouraged girls to stay in school and women to lead. In a single breath, Sankara challenged centuries of patriarchy. But he didn't stop there. He declared that Burkina Faso would reject foreign aid that came with strings. He condemned the debt imposed by the West. The debt is a cleverly managed reconquest of Africa, aimed at subjugating its growth and development through foreign rules. He called on African nations to unite, to refuse to pay colonial debts, to rise together, not as beggars, but as equals. His speeches shook the world. To some, he was a hero. To others, a threat. Because Thomas Sankara was proof that Africa didn't need saviors. It only needed courage. He lived simply. He cut his own salary. He sold off the fleet of Mercedes used by officials and replaced them with modest cars. He planted trees with his own hands to fight desertification. He built a self-reliant economy with dignity at its core. But that dignity came at a cost. Western powers grew uneasy. Some African leaders despised him. Elites within his own country, threatened by his honesty and reforms, began to turn. And worst of all, betrayal came from where it was least expected. As the revolution deepened, so did the threats. Thomas Sankara had refused to compromise. He exposed corrupt officials. He rejected World Bank loans. He denounced imperialism to the face of world leaders. And he called on Africa to stand up, not with empty slogans, but with action. But the louder he spoke, the more dangerous he became to those who fed on Africa's silence. He was warned to slow down, warned to stop criticizing France, the IMF, the African elite. But Sankara said, "While revolutionaries as individuals can be murdered, you cannot kill ideas." Those words would soon be tested. Inside his own government, shadows began to gather: jealousy, resentment, fear. Some saw his humility as a threat to their wealth. Others saw his independence as a danger to their foreign masters. And in the center of those shadows was a man once called brother, Blaise Compaoré. Sankara and Compaoré had shared trenches. They had dreamed together, fought together, risen together. But power can twist even the deepest bonds. On October 15th, 1987, a black day in the history of Africa, gunfire echoed through the presidential palace in Ouagadougou. Thomas Sankara, the voice of Burkina Faso, was gunned down in cold blood. 12 of his companions were executed beside him, their bodies buried hastily, nameless, without honor. The revolution had been betrayed, not by foreign enemies, but by one of its own sons. Blaise Compaoré seized power the same day, claiming Sankara had jeopardized relations with allies. But everyone knew the truth. The man who once walked barefoot with farmers, the man who defied empires, the man who made Africa believe again, was silenced, but not forgotten, because Sankara's blood soaked into the soil of Africa. And from that soil, new voices began to rise. They buried his body, but they could never bury his truth. For years, Blaise Compaoré ruled Burkina Faso in silence, suppressing the memory of Sankara, erasing his name from the streets, banning his image, and trying to rewrite history. But Sankara had already become more than a man. He was now a symbol, a whisper in every village, a cry in every protest, a spark in the eyes of every African child who dared to dream of something greater. While Compaoré grew rich and distant, the people remembered. They told their children about the man who rode a bike to the palace. They remembered the president who lived like them, who spoke like them, who fought for them. They remembered that he once said, "I want people to remember me as someone whose life has been helpful to humanity. And humanity did remember. His words were quoted by revolutionaries in South Africa, by students in Kenya, by farmers in Ghana. Murals of his face appeared across cities and slums. Red beret, defiant gaze. And then, in 2014, 27 years after Sankara's assassination, the people rose. Thousands took to the streets. Young people who hadn't even been born when he died shouted his name. Sankara lives. They toppled Compaore's regime, and for the first time, the truth began to rise from the shadows. In 2021, a historic trial was held, and in 2022, Blaise Compaoré was found guilty in absentia for the murder of his former friend and comrade. Justice had moved slowly, but it had moved. Sankara's family and the people of Burkina Faso wept, not just in mourning, but in triumph, because the man they loved had not died in vain. Thomas Sankara's life was lightning, brief, blinding, unforgettable. Only 37 years old when he was killed, yet he had reshaped the soul of a nation. He proved that politics could be pure, that power could serve, that revolution did not need blood, only courage. He taught Africa that it could stand, not on the crutches of aid, but on the strength of its people. He showed that true independence meant dignity, self-reliance, and sacrifice. He was called Africa's Che Guevara, but he was more than that. He was Thomas Sankara, the upright man, the rebel president, the son of Africa. And today, as the winds of change sweep across the continent again, his voice can still be heard, urging us to fight, to rise, to believe. You cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain amount of madness. It took the madmen of yesterday for us to be able to act with extreme clarity today. If that is madness, then Africa needs more of it. The revolution is not dead, it was only waiting. And Thomas Sankara walks beside us. Still,